Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Brandon Shank, and welcome to the Brandon Shank Podcast. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Brandon Shank Podcast. As always, got my main man, Coy and Nakona.
What's up?
Hi.
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 Hello.
Hello. How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
It's good to have you. Well, man, it is we live in a very crazy place here in Virginia Beach. Last week, as we were doing this podcast, I was looking outside and it was pounding the snow. We got about a foot. And today I look out and it looks like a beautiful spring day. The only divots in my yard are from my truck pulling my kids on the sled.
I saw the videos, yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful out. It's amazing. It's the most undecided. I mean, the thing about Virginia Beach, no matter how much snow you get, 2 or 3 days, you can't even tell.
Yeah, it melts fast.
4 days. I've got a small remnant about the size of, well, now it's a softball, but it used to be a snowman that was about 4 feet tall and maybe 3 feet around. It's now the size of a softball left in our yard. That's the only snow anywhere in Virginia Beach left.
Bro, there was some picture, I don't know where it was in Virginia Beach. My wife showed me. Someone in this city made like a 10-foot snowman. It was huge.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
It's like, dude, the base was huge.
Oh my, the amount of people that it would have to take to build that is unbelievable.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I told my wife, I said, we should go outside and just spend an entire day making snowmen and try to get like 20 or 30 snowmen in our front yard just so people drive by and like, wow, that's creepy.
That's a Calvin and Hobbes thing. There's a bunch of anyone who reads the Calvin and Hobbes comics, he always creates like a city's worth of snowmen anytime it snows.
That's awesome. I loved Calvin and Hobbes growing up.
He went in one of the scenes.
I loved him.
Yeah, one of the scenes, it was like he built this scene around his dad's car that looked like the car had hit a snowman, and it was like, and all the people around it were like it's good.
Oh my gosh.
It's my favorite.
Well, it's funny because I'm like, man, if we would have just gotten a bunch of people over here and just made as many snowmen as we could, and people just drive by and you see like 15 or 20 snowmen, maybe 30, 40 snowmen, that'd been crazy, wouldn't it?
Just create some scene out in your front yard. Yeah.
Yeah, that we should have, but yeah, we had a good time, man. Just pulled them on behind the truck and just let it eat, man. So it was fun.
Oh yeah,
had a good time. I don't recommend it. It's not necessarily the safest thing, but it was fun.
Oh yeah.
We were pulling them on a boogie board, and the boogie board wouldn't keep going. So when you stopped the truck, the boogie board wouldn't keep sliding because of the bottom and texture of it. So it was just stop. So it wouldn't keep going anywhere, you know. And we don't have any hills. The biggest thing about that is there's actually somebody locally that got hurt. They I don't know if they were going down a hill, but this UTV was pulling them. And sometimes it's like, you know, when you go out in these big waves, these Sea-Doos or these jet skis will pull surfers into the big wave. Well, like I've seen people before, they'll take like their truck, whatever, and pull people to a hill really fast. So they'll go down the hill fast. Mm-hmm. The problem is you can't slow down or stop. But we don't have any hills. We just pull them in circles. But like I said, it's fun. You know what I mean? That's how we do it here at the beach.
Yeah.
But so now that the Super Bowl has died down a little bit, and I waited for this topic because I wanted the Super Bowl to die down. I wanted things to kind of ease out a little bit. But I saw something very interesting last week. I don't follow Kendrick Lamar's music. Like I think he's he's a talented artist. I think some of his stuff, obviously, like I like his beats. But and I thought the halftime show was fine. Like I thought it was good. You know, whatever. Well, there was something that came out last week. There was somebody, I forget who it was, but they were speaking about the halftime show, and they just made such an interesting comment. Like Kendrick Lamar is an artist. He's a hip-hop artist. You know, he's a great writer. And obviously there's a beef with Kendrick Lamar and Drake that's very notorious. Everybody knows about Kendrick Lamar, knows about it. Everybody knows about Drake, knows about it. And there's some very unfitting comments made, especially during one of his songs that he sang during the Super Bowl. But something that was interesting was, I don't know how your response was, but after that Super Bowl, people were going crazy about how great the Super Bowl show was, the halftime show, how great he is as an artist, about how he is so dynamic with how he weaves things in and out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a lot of praise for him, and honestly, they were just saying that it was just a straight uppercut to Drake because of his music and because he even took it on the grand stage. Like he sang the song that Drake was trying to sue him over, saying, you can't, this is libel, this is slander, you can't sing about me like this because it's false. I mean, the things he was singing about were stuff that gets you put in jail.
Yeah.
about Drake. So all that to say, there was I think it was a Fellowship of Christian Athletes. It was a dude doing a devotion or something for a team, and it went viral. And he was saying, this world shows you through the halftime show what we are. He said, the world is celebrating a man who is destroying another man and saying, oh, it's like, they're jumping in on, he's like, this isn't about either one. It's just showing you the world is backing somebody who is attempting to destroy somebody else.
Yeah.
He was like, that should show you everything you know. And it just kind of caught me off guard where I was like, honestly, the rap beefs are nothing new. Beefs and, there's nothing new. But it just kind of caught me off guard because, like, man, the world is a hateful place, and people love people who destroy other people. They love watching people's lives. Something I've learned is the world loves it when celebrities crash. They love it when people they just love watching people get set on fire and burn, and it is a dark thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you think about it,
absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's not just about, it's a beef, and did you hear what he said? It's like, wow. Why do you celebrate that? You know what I'm saying? Like, the dude is destroying somebody else. And I'm not against any of them. I'm just saying I don't understand why we celebrate these things. Like, if that was you know what I'm saying? Can you imagine you're on a worldwide stage of somebody destroying you like that? And what he said was, one of the comments that really set him off, that set Drake off, was Kendrick Lamar was making assumptions or making statements that Drake has had, sexual relationships with minors, which is not even close to. That's one of those things, if you make that statement, you had better be right, meaning you're coming out and trying to get this man taken off the streets because he is a danger to people. It's not something you say just to say, and, you better have proof, and you're trying to get this guy arrested. It's like, you don't just make a statement about somebody like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was like, man, what a powerful thing. This dude, I was like, it's just and it's not a profound point, but it is a point of like, man, it makes so much sense.
Yeah. Sure.
Like, just destroying folks for what? And I don't know, man. It just lets you go to see that fame is scary, because people love to put people on pedestals, and they like to get them as high as they can to knock them off and see what it looks like once they fall.
Yeah.
They like to get you as high as they can get you on that pedestal to kick you off, to let you burn, and it is a scary place. You think about all the people who have experienced any type of fame, and dude, I would like to see the percentages on the amount of people that get destroyed. Because it can't be good, Yeah. I mean, they were talking about Taylor Swift getting booed at the Super Bowl and how it was like really hard on her. And then other people said, well, it was actually a lot of Eagles fans that were booing her. She's America's sweetheart, and everybody goes to her concerts and all this stuff. And they were saying how it really was difficult on her. And I was like thinking, man, that is a crazy thing to be a celebrity who really just tries to love people. And I don't know Taylor Swift, but, it will take nothing for people. They just see your face too much, they turn on you. So my word is this: for those of you trying to get love and care from the world, you're looking at the wrong place.
Yeah.
It's just the fame is so fleeting. It's so empty. AJ Brown, receiver for the Eagles, he has a very public battle with mental health in the past and things like that. And after they won the Super Bowl, he had said something that's very interesting. He said, it was nothing like I thought. He said, I realized that after winning the Super Bowl, that's not why I even played. He said, the reason I played was to train, and the mindset of training to get me ready for the games, and then being in the games and being competitive.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's such a good perspective. There's been so many guys win Super Bowls that were like, this was not what I thought. So I wonder how many of you that are listening, you're running towards something and you're like, man, this is actually not what I thought. Like, once I get here, the emptiness of what you thought something could be may be the greatest fight against depression you'll ever have in your life.
Yeah.
Because you work towards something that you think is hopeful, but once you get there, you realize, what am I really living and working for? Because I can tell you this in my life, as whether it's influence or whatever has come in my way that I've yearned for, or that I've tried to become the next big thing. Whenever you get any type of influence in those areas, you actually realize how empty it is, and that what you needed all along to fill that void was that special sweet time with God, that connection through prayer, connection through reading your Bible, that connection with your kids and your wife, that at the end, that is 150% all that matters.
Yeah, for sure. And it's such a resounding theme, I think, within college. You hear so many people say that. So many people that have obtained something or reached some goal, or, they're just like, yeah, it's not it actually didn't fill me. Like it didn't have the effect that I thought it was going to have. And I think that, yeah, absolutely. Like you said, there's a part of that, I mean, not a part, it's God. Like we know what fulfills, but I also think too, there's a part of that I think is how much of it was for you and how much of it was for the kind of the care and influence of others. Cause that's ultimately what fulfills, is what we do for others, you know? And so, yeah, I think these people that strive to obtain things for themselves, and then they realize, yeah, I'm kind of on top of this mountain by myself. You know, that's, I don't know.
Yeah, I just think there are so many things. There's professional athletes, there's celebrities, there's people who have everything everybody wants, and they talk about like wanting to kill themselves, and they talk about like this. I was just reading yesterday this pro golfer that was talking about for decades he wanted to take his life, and every day he wanted to take his life. And you just think, well, why would you do that? You're 1 in a million. You made it big, because it doesn't fill anything.
Mm-hmm.
Those things mean nothing. You get one life, and when you get to the place you're like, well, I have everything, and I'm still just as miserable. I would even say it's maybe harder. You can distract yourself by chasing things you think will eventually bring you hope. But I would say it's even harder when you get to those places that you've set out for and you achieve it, and you realize that hope, it's honestly like chasing, it's like Skittles. You're chasing the rainbow. I feel like that's what it is. You're trying to see what's at the end of this rainbow, and nobody will ever find out because it's a circle. But sometimes you maybe a few will get there and they realize that pot of gold was filled with something that they didn't think it was, or it's just amazing to me. People are like, man, money would make life so much easier. And then I've had seasons where I've had little and had a lot, kind of like Paul. And I can tell you that that's one area of stress you may not have, but there's other areas that'll peak up. You can't control if you get a lump in your kidney. You can't control if you get a tumor on your, like you can't control things that will make you worry either way. So it's just, I know it's a deep dive quick, but my thought was just, it was baffling to me. Like we live in a world that'll destroy quickly and people are looking for hope. And it's like, man, I can tell you the best seasons of my life are seasons where my prayer life, I'm spending time with God every day and I'm reading my Bible every day. I can tell you hands down, no questions asked, regardless of money, regardless of status, regardless of future, regardless of anything in my life. Those are hands down, I'm telling you, the remedy right now, 100% are those things. Actually, it's funny because the two videos that on my TikTok that have recently just gone really well, with thousands of likes and views and comments, have been two topics. One about reading your Bible, and two about looking through your phone and seeing the promises of how God has been faithful to you, even though you may not think he's present. Those two things have just resonated with people. And I think it's because at the end of the day, those things are more valuable than anything you could possibly do. It's like, I want to get closer to God, and I'm going to realize he has been present in my life. It's just a crazy concept. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the cool thing you said, can I get a little poetic? The cool thing that you said about chasing what's finding at the end of a rainbow, that's not physically possible. You can't find the end of a rainbow. Your vantage point of a rainbow is from your perspective. You go trying to find where that rainbow is, you're not going to see the rainbow anymore. Like the beauty of a rainbow is you see it from where you are currently. And that's the cool thing.
I love it, man. That's great. That leads us right into the best part of this show, which is the fun fact.
Hey, we're going to get really nerdy today. You ready to get nerdy? Maybe.
I feel like we get nerdy quite often. I like
we do.
For all those nerds out there, this one's for you.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about what is kind of the opposite side of AI. So AI, it's this thing we're hearing a whole lot about, but there's something else that is also happening. And Microsoft actually just had a kind of a crazy breakthrough. I think it was just a couple weeks ago, honestly. But this is the wildest thing is Microsoft has created a new state of matter, which in and of itself is kind of wild because we've been taught, it's solid, liquid, or gas. That's your states of matter. That's what we have. Well, Microsoft has created a new one, and it is called a topological state.
Okay.
So this has to do with quantum computing. And I wrote a lot down here because honestly, this gets pretty intense. So in science, there's this thing that it's trial and error. A lot of the things that we invent, a lot of the things that we need to figure out is we have a theory about something, and then it goes into this trial and error, and trial and error could last months, years, decades. I mean, even this breakthrough they've been working on for the last 2 decades. And so when it comes to quantum computing, the best way I can explain this, and this is where I'm going to get a little nerdy when it comes to movies, is if you've seen Avengers Endgame, there's this part where Tony Stark is Iron Man. He's trying to figure out how to go back in time. And so he's working with his probably quantum computer, Jarvis, and they're running simulations, and he's trying to figure out what would work for the Avengers to go back in time. So that is essentially what a quantum computer is. It's able to run millions and millions of simulations to figure out basically what actually works. And so we're like, a lot of scientists believe that we're maybe 10 to 15 years away from this. So it's just kind of crazy. So anyway, Microsoft had this huge breakthrough, which is called, I wrote it down, it's called where is it? I just lost it. The Morana 1, I think is how they call it. And so it's a new computer chip that has the potential to hold more computational power than all of the computer power on the earth currently combined. And it fits in the palm of your hand. Is how big this thing is. So also fun fact is it has to be kept cold to run, and apparently it has to be kept at 50 millikelvin, which is 40 times colder than space.
Jeez.
Yeah. So with this new, again, I am not a scientist, but apparently with this new topological state, which is literally it's a new form of matter. The biggest problem that we have in quantum computing is errors and the ability to correct those errors. So if it's going to be running a ton of simulations, obviously it's going to find a bunch of errors. It then has to correct those errors to get new solutions. And so the best way I can describe this is the old model was kind of almost like you're writing something on a piece of paper with pencil or ink. And if you smudge your hand, it'll smudge. So I guess the way this new model works is it's more like a tattoo on your skin. So if your skin flexes and folds, the ink flexes and folds with the material or your skin. So it's more resilient to errors. I am not that nerdy, so I don't really know exactly what that means. But essentially the sheer fact that we're probably a decade away from, I mean, you name it, potentially running things like a cure for cancer through quantum computing or pollution or clean energy, or quantum computing has the potential to create, I don't know, maybe new elements or new materials, or you name it. What would take us decades and decades could now be done in hours, essentially, with quantum computing. So we're still a good ways a little off, but Microsoft has had kind of the first really biggest breakthrough with this chip. And so somebody described it like, we don't have the whole car yet, but we have the engine, and that's a big start. So it's kind of crazy. So I say all of that to say, here's my fun question. What are you asking it to figure out?
That's actually what I was going to say. Hey, let's do a you ask for it right now. You ask for it.
Don't blame me. You asked for it.
So today's you ask for it is brought to you by Corey Broadwater and the Fun Fact. We're just rolling it right in. So what is the you ask for it? What would I want it to compute? Because I was actually going to ask that question.
Yeah. What's it going to compute for you?
If it can solve something for me. I think it's the basic answer that people listening right now, I bet you half of the people listening would think of exactly what I'm going to say.
All right.
Solve world hunger.
Yeah. That's one that
and I'll tell you why. Because before anything else, you've got to, I think before we do anything extra, you got to meet basic human needs. And I think if we could meet the basic human need of survival, Like, sure, some people are cold, some people are hot, some people need better shelter, but the thought of general consumption is, I mean, it's important, you know.
Yeah.
So I think for me that'd be a slam dunk of like that. It's kind of like that's the rain cloud. The other things are the raindrops. Like that's something that has to be taken care of. Like those things are important, but if you can't, if everybody's got to eat, right? So let's take care of humanity first, and then let's do everything else.
Yeah.
How about you?
Is a hot dog a sandwich? No.
No, it's not.
Is water wet?
It's a hot dog. I guess I would say yes.
We talked about this on the podcast. No, water is not wet. Yeah.
Well, that's your opinion.
That's all. It's
Scientific evidence.
Yeah. I mean, world hunger, obviously. That's the immediately one that came to my mind because I agree with you. It's, man, how can we do something collectively for the entire world? But honestly, I also think, I mean, goodness, clean energy, I think, is a fantastic one. Yeah, I don't know. That's
anything
tough,
to help
man.
save this place would be great.
Dude.
You know, it is funny. Like you kind of ignore it because you think that's not a big deal. But when you think about the pollution, and every time I see these trucks roll down the road, these big old smokestacks and just stuff going in the air, you're like, man, no wonder this place has turned into a dumpster fire. Like just all the pollution we got, and I mean, it's just unbelievable the amount we've just built because we are smart. We have human minds, and some of the stuff's been probably produced and used before it was ready to be used, and we've just never grown the product to where it's kind of stayed in the same state. You know what I mean? Like whatever that is, it is like, man, you even think about the manufacturing and all the trash that we dump. Like we are definitely using this planet, you know?
Dude, I also saw a crazy thing, which again, it just goes to show you where we are in time right now. And it literally was a picture of like the Romans that had, you know, horses with chariots and in the Colosseum or whatever. And then it showed a picture from the 1800s of a horse and buggy. And it said for how, you know, who knows how many hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years, goodness, that was kind of the technology and the mode of transportation. And then literally from that horse and buggy, they were like, here's what we now have 200 years later. And it's like this super jet. Like what has happened in the last 200 years over the course of time because of computers and technology is wild. So then all of a sudden you introduce something that fits in the palm of your hand that has the potential to have more computing power than all the current computers on the planet. What is that thing going to be able to do?
Well, what they say, the cell phone has more computing power than the first launch into space.
Yep.
Like the computers and the, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's crazy. I mean, well, and I think I'm just in this place where I'm 42 and I think about being 42 and I think about my life and I think about there is some people have midlife crisis because like, is this what I want to do the rest of my life? And I understand that because you're kind of in a place of like, if I'm not doing what I want to do, I got to get into it because I'm already 42. So I'm retiring in 25 years.
Yeah.
It's weird because you're thinking my work years are half over, if not more.
Sure.
And for me, I definitely am in what I want to be doing. But you do think like, man, you get one life and like, this is it. Like once you hit 40, you're not going to try to train to play in the pros for anything. You're not going to try to be a, you know, certain type of athlete. It's not that people don't achieve things when they're older. That's not what I'm saying. But you get to the place where you start to think, am I doing what I want to do the rest of my life? And I think, am I really where I want to be? And when I was in my 20s, man, every birthday was miserable because I just wanted to be running and jumping and doing all these things, not realizing that when I was 27 or 25 or 24, that God was building things that I would look back when I was 40 and be grateful that because this is the thing, when you're in those times where you're building things and you're being faithful and God's growing things in you, he's growing character and he's growing fruit and patience. It's not good because you want to see the success. You want to see the influence, the fame, whatever you want to call it. And when you look back and you're 40, you're like, man, I'm so glad that God took that time to build me before he did, like allowed me to be a part of other things. Cause I don't think I may not have had the character or whatever it may be. But it's really hard when you're in those times. I call them like the incubation seasons. And for me, it was like 10 years. And I'm not saying I wasn't doing things. I'm just saying you feel like those seasons are forever. And when you get to be older, you realize how valuable those times were that were quiet. And that's exactly what I was saying, alluding to earlier, was you look at all the things you've accomplished in your life. And like, man, at the end of the day, like my oldest is 14. He's in 8th grade. He's going to be in 9th grade next year. And like, he doesn't have a ton of time left in our home, you know, and my youngest is in 2nd grade, excuse me. He's going to be in 3rd grade next year. And we just celebrated Makai's 10th birthday. You know, he's in 4th grade, and you realize how fast all of it goes. You know, like a lot of my friends, their kids are getting ready to graduate high school and things like that, and you realize how fast it goes. And I look back at my life and I realize in all of the things that I rushed, or all of the things that maybe I didn't appreciate, I'm like, man, I understand why older people say, if I knew then what I know now, they would honestly probably just enjoy the moments and realize that life, no matter what happens, no matter how much money you make, no matter how successful you are, what you build, you start where you finish, and that you one day you're not doing any of it and you're sitting in your house with a bank account full of money or a bank account with a little bit of money. But at the end of the day, all that matters is your family, the legacy that you've left through your life.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Enjoy the rainbow from where you are.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great concept. So it is. It's just very interesting. And I mean, it wasn't like today was meant to be a self-reflective thing, but it is. It's just very. My wife and I were talking before the podcast today, and you know, we had a late night last night. We hosted a dinner for the entire 757 at our church and National Unity Weekend, and it was a phenomenal time. Had a great time with everybody. A good dinner, just a good time. And I don't know, sometimes after those types of events, I reflect at just how far God has brought us and what he's spoken in our life. And that when you get to certain places, you realize those places weren't actually the place. It's an A.J. Brown moment. Those places weren't actually the place that you set out for. Those places are just places and that God's asked you to stand in. And so I think, you know, for all of you listening, some of you may be standing in places that you're like, man, I don't. Maybe you're going through a tough time because you're not where you want to be. And then some of you are going through tough times because you are where you want to be and it's not fulfilling. Well, both of you are in the same place because you're filling things with the wrong thing. Yeah. You know?
Yep.
God's plans are so much bigger. In fact, it reminds me of a story. There was a baker in Chicago who, when she was 17, her name was Lenore Lindsay. She put her son up for adoption because she couldn't take care of him at a young age. And I respect that. You know what I mean? I always thought, like, when I was young, I was always like, man, how cool would it be to be adopted? And some of you adopted may say, man, it'd be cool to have your birth parents. But I always thought, like, you know, when you're adopted, you're picked. And so there was something about that I always thought was special. Even though I wasn't adopted, I thought, man, that's sweet that people picked that child, you know. But she owned a bakery in Chicago, and her long-lost son was 35 at the time, and he had paid this organization or this company to help find his birth parents. Well, he lived in Chicago. She had a bakery in Chicago. So one day he looks on his phone and he sees that the bakery is calling him. This is a bakery that he frequented every week for 10 years. And he's like, well, I didn't order anything. And he picks up the phone, and the lady, Lenore, starts talking to her son, Vamar Hunter. And they quickly realized that the company that he had hired had given her his information because she was his birth mother. Jeez. And so Lenore calls Vamar, and he's now 35, and she called him from the bakery line because, you know, she didn't want to call him from her personal number.
Yeah.
And they realized when they started talking that who each other was. Like, he knew her, she knew him. And after they reunited, she was recovering from breast cancer surgery and experienced a stroke. And so he quit his job to help her manage the bakery, and now he works there full time. And so the big theme of the story was, like, you can't tell the story without thanking God. Like, he was just drawn to this bakery. He said, I don't know what it was, but I went in there all the time. I ate there. He was like, it was just a place of peace for me. So he got to know her really well. She got to know him, and then she calls him and realizes that he was her long lost son. He had been a block away from that bakery for those 10 years.
Wow.
And they said their bakery took off because people were coming through and they just wanted to hear the story of faith, and they were saying, man, only God could do this. And I think it's just a beautiful picture of what really matters. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Jeez.
That, you know, it's just a cool story of what only God can do, you know?
That's awesome.
You can't make that up, man.
Yeah, really.
I also read one other thing I wanted to talk about was, I think I would be lying to tell you there is not probably a tiny bit of PTSD in me and probably all of us from COVID, just because of when you look back, you're like, man, millions of Americans died. Millions of people died. It was scary because honestly, you didn't know if you felt like everybody was just in the Hunger Games. You didn't know who was next. And honestly, people died that you didn't think would die. People lived you didn't think would live. People got it you didn't think would get it. People didn't get it you thought would. I mean, it's just the reality of it. And the thought of going through another one, I'm not sure how people would handle it. I think there'd be a fight against the masks. There'd be a fight against isolation. And coming out of it, people just want relationship.
Yeah.
Well, I read an article recently that said it's not if, but when. Like there will be another pandemic.
Sure. Yeah.
Like there's no way around it. And recently, the lab in Wuhan had discovered another virus that they said it's in a bat, and they said if that virus can get from a bat to a human, there will be another pandemic. And everybody's like, well, why is it the same lab? Like those are questions I can't answer for you. But what I can tell you is, immediately I felt like tension when I read that of like, man, I don't want to go through this again. I don't want one of my kids to pass away. I don't want my parents or me or my wife or people that I know, because all of us lost people we knew during the pandemic. All of us. I mean, it was a horrible, horrible time. But I got so suddenly reminded, like the Bible talks about in the last days, there will be wars and rumors of wars and famines and earthquakes, and there's going to be disease and pestilence. And I feel like the warning shot was COVID. Like it's just people need to realize that God is the only answer. And he wasn't doing it to people, but it's just the state of our world. And I thought, like, what if it happened again? And honestly, as horrible as this is to say, I have some great memories from the pandemic. I have some great memories of things that people helped each other. Great memories of people going above and beyond to make sure other people were safe, and to delivering groceries and to cleaning them off. And great memories of Casey and I were able to help a family whose mom was a nurse and let them use our RV for a while. And great memories of people who were reaching out to us, and great memories of worship online that we couldn't get to each other, but you still felt so spiritually connected. And I think that in times like that, when we get scared, we just have to realize, like in the midst of your panic attack, you look back and you're scared of the panic attack, but you remember in the middle of it, like there was a peace that was weird. You're like, I was in a panic attack, but I was also in a peace because God did something special.
Yeah.
And it honestly just got me thinking how special the scariest moments of our life have been whenever you look back and realize you made it. And like there was a peace there that you didn't have, that now you have.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, man, I'm not scared of it. I'm not scared of it again. We made it through, and God is sovereign. And I'm not going to live my life scared of the next pandemic. It may happen once we're all gone. It may happen tomorrow. But what I know is it's not something I'm going to fear. It's not something I'm willing to let. The world changed. There's no way to change back any human that lived through the pandemic. Even our kids. There's no way to change it back. Right? The world changed. And I remember mourning. I think some people need to do that. I remember mourning during the pandemic, of just mourning what I knew for the first 40 years of my life. Mourning that, mourning what was. Mourning what life looked like. Knowing that we will never have life like that again. Like we will see. Do you remember before the pandemic, if you saw somebody wearing like a surgical mask, you're like, man, that's creepy. After the pandemic, everywhere you go throughout the day, you'll see somebody wearing one somewhere.
Yeah.
And so it's just mourning that. But I was like, man, you know what? I'm not going to be scared about this, because God did it once, and he brought us through it. And in the midst of some of my greatest fears and dark moments, I've sensed God the most.
Yeah.
Looking back.
Oh, yeah.
The closest I remember God being to me was in my scariest moments. I'm saying something for people that are listening. Like, we live in such fear of these things. And when I read that, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I thought that was like a once in a, millennium thing. But I mean, the Spanish flu happened in the 1900s. And, COVID happened like 100 years later. And so like only once in a lifetime, but maybe not. And my thought is, well, I don't want to live my life in fear. And so, I just think like our generation, right now, I think a lot of people are living in fear. They're living in fear of what could be. And I read something out of Psalm 112 today. I'm actually going to read it. I read this a minute ago. And I sent it to my wife. And this is something that I just want to encourage people with. It hit me. Let me get here. It said, I always think, like we said earlier, what if you have money, then you worry about your health? What if you have health and you worry about your money? What if you have money and health and you worry about your kids? What if you have money, health, and kids and you worry about somebody else's kids? And you're not worried about their kids the way you worry your own, and then worry about your own. And then what if you're not worried about anybody, but yet you're worried about whether or not your house is going to burn down? It's always something.
Yeah.
In Psalm 112, verse 7, it says, talking about people who obey God and people who delight in his commands, it says, they don't fear bad news. They confidently trust the Lord to care for them. They are confident and fearless, and they can face their foes triumphantly. I mean, how much of a blessing is that to think no matter what comes my way, I won't have fear? Like, how many people would give everything in their life for that kind of thought? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful thing, man. So I just want people to listen and be like, what do you have to do in your life to get to a place where you don't fear what may come? Or you don't fear missing that payment, or you don't fear tomorrow, but you're locked in. Like, what do you got to do? Because I know for me, anxiety is not something that subsides whenever my money looks good in the bank account or my health. I get a good review from the doctor. You get a good review from the doctor. You know, you think, I need to go to the doctor to get a good review, and then I'll feel peaceful. You go get a good review, and then you think, well, you know, people die all the time after they were cleared from a good physical. You know what I mean? It's just nonstop.
Yeah.
It's just nonstop cycle. And so I want to live in a way that I don't fear bad news. I don't live on that defense all the time, you know? I don't live in a way that I honor that. So here's my final thought.
Here's my final thought.
I was driving to work one morning, and I was actually driving to a group, and it was 5 in the morning, 5:15, and there was a group of people. They looked like they were glowing in the dark, and they had like these running suits on that had like these lights all over them. And I looked in there. I bet you everybody in that run group was over 60. And I thought, man, that's what I'm talking about. The run club. You know, they say that one of the biggest regrets people in their 30s and 40s had was they didn't work out in their 20s, because it's a lot harder to get in shape once you're in your 30s and 40s and when you're young and just keep it going. And I was like, man, my hat goes off to you. It's 5:15 in the morning. Most of y'all are probably retired, and you're out here running with these glow-in-the-dark suits on a bike path. It wasn't like they were getting hit by a car, but I was like, man, how amazing is that y'all are doing this? And I think, you know what? Don't let age be something to defer what you love to do. I mean, last week, for the first time ever, I got to play pickleball, and it was a beautiful experience, and I had a lot of fun, and we had a great time. We were on our staff retreat.
Oh, yeah.
We had a good time. I love pickleball, and I only played it once. Why? Because it was just fun. It was just something fun to do. But I'm curious, how many people out there have something you would love to do, something you want to do, but you're like, I'm just too old, or I just can't do it, or I don't have the time. Because this is the thing. If you have a hobby, you are a happier person, period. It is that simple.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a new lease on life for these people, you know? They're hobbyists. They're out there running. You know, these people, they're thinking, man, well, I'm a runner now, and they may only run half the time and walk half the time, or they may run the whole time. They may have a 20-minute mile, but they're going online. They're buying their hookahs. They're buying their on clouds. They're buying their glow-in-the-dark suits. They're buying all the gear because they're hobbyists. Now they're hobby runners. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. Like, they're out there doing their thing. They're getting healthy. They're getting fit. You know, you see 80-year-olds out on these pickleball courts just schooling people. I love racquetball. And man, you play some of these guys, at Evangel University, there was a professor who said, if you can beat me in racquetball, you'll get an A. And nobody could ever beat him. He didn't move. He stayed in the same spot. And he could put that ball where you couldn't get to it. Didn't matter where you hit it. That man was going to make your life miserable. And so I think, man, get a hobby. That is the theme of today. Get a hobby, because I think it'll help your anxiety. I think it'll help all the things you think you should fear. Hobbies change the game, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, they really do change the game.
For sure.
And so I think, like, I'm going to read my Bible and pray and God's going to do it. You're right. But I'm telling you, he's created you to be physical. Like, go out and get a hobby. Read your Bible. Enjoy the Lord. And go do something that makes you feel good, man. Like, go do something. Some of y'all, you need a hobby. It's not that you need a move of God in your life. You need something to move in your life.
Yeah.
You know, you need physically to do something that you would enjoy, you know. Go get a hobby. Do something that makes you have fun. It's such an important piece to our life, man. And I don't know. I think it's so valuable. I think we take for granted some of the most valuable things that God is trying to give us in our life. The ability to move. How many people would love the ability to move? Like, I don't want to be like old and not able to walk around. You know, if it was an injury or some kind of cancer or something I can't control is one thing, but I don't want to do it just because I've been immobile for 20 years because my body hurt. And then I get older and I don't want to move around. Like, I don't want to live like that. Like, I know some of these guys at the golf course, they're in their 90s and they're walking the course 2 or 3 times a week. And I'm thinking, that's all you need to do, man. These guys are hobbyists. They just come out, hang out with their buddies all day at the golf club, and they go out and walk the course. Like, just a beautiful picture of, you know, it's fun to be active.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's fun to be active, man. So go get you a run suit. Guys, go get you a run suit with some glow-in-the-dark neons.
Go play pickleball.
Go do your thing. Go play pickleball. Go play pickleball. Let me pray for y'all. Lord, I thank you so much for each and every listener. I thank you for each and every family. I pray they would know you. They know that you see them, that your hand is on them, and you never leave them. In Jesus' name, Everybody said,
Amen.
amen. Hey, follow along. Let us know on socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Hit us up. Like, comment, subscribe, YouTube. Also, every Sunday, 9:30, Palm Church. We'll see y'all then. Love you guys.